3 years of searching, and it was an unrelated investigation that finally led deputies to Suzanne Morphew's body. It was in Moffat, in Saguache County, south of where she disappeared in 2020. The arrest and failed prosecution of her husband, Barry Morphew, made international news. Right now, investigators are not saying how Suzanne died, but it seems that they did not notify her husband and his legal team about the discovery because it appears we did. I want to bring in our Mark Salinger, who's covered this case for years. And Mark, prosecutors dropped the case against Barry Morphew at the exact moment so that they could bring it back if they found the body. Yeah, Kyle, and now they have the body.
Exactly. This is the day that the DA's office has said for years that they've been waiting for. Suzanne's been missing since Mother's Day of 2020 with very little evidence about where she might be. Investigators from the CBI, FBI, every local law enforcement agency said that they searched everywhere for years and weren't able to find her. Now it seems that they found her remains by accident. Suzanne's husband, Barry, was arrested back in 2021 and charged with her murder. The case rested on very few hard facts and rather more circumstantial evidence. Now, just 9 days before Barry's trial was set to start, the district attorney dropped charges against him, saying they couldn't move forward with the evidence that they had. At this point, no one has been arrested today for her murder. If investigators find that there is evidence tying Barry to the murder, they could still charge him again since charges were dropped last year before the trial ever started.
If additional evidence points at Barry Morphew, the prosecution's not really going to have any problem at all refiling the charges. The case was dismissed without prejudice. On the other hand, if someone else is implicated, all of the evidence that seemingly pointed at Barry Morphew is going to be used by the defense. It all depends on who, if anyone, the district attorney charges in this homicide case.
Now, the CBI says they told Suzanne's family about the news that her remains had been found. I called Barry's attorney this afternoon, just minutes after the press release was sent out. She said she hadn't been told that Suzanne had been found. I actually told her over the phone pile. We don't know if investigators actually told Barry, and he just didn't tell his attorney. We don't know that yet.
You'd imagine that would be one of the first calls that he would make. Investigators were pretty sure that they had a good idea of where she was, but the area that they were looking at was north of Poncha Pass, and the area where her body was found was south of Poncha Pass down the San Luis Valley.
Yeah, this is, in theory, not somewhere that investigators had been searching for several years. In fact, when the district attorney dropped the charges, they said that they believed that Suzanne's body was somewhere in the hills above the Morphew home. This location where they found her is not that.
All right. Mark, thank you very much. The city of Denver is making a very bold claim about its first in a new type of homeless encampment sweeps. The city tells us today that no one kicked out of the 8th and Logan encampment turned down their offer of other shelter, that all 80 people there went to hotels or supervised outdoor camping sites. Our Steve Steger looks at how the city's tracking those numbers.
We had 0 people turn down the options that we presented to them.
This week's sweep of an encampment in front of the governor's mansion was a first for Denver. The first time the city made an offer to the people camped there. If they moved out, they could move in to a hotel room or a safe sanctioned campsite. More than 80 people took them up on that offer. And if those 80 people stay in those sanctioned sites for 2 weeks, they'll be counted on the city's House 1000 progress dashboard, which as of this afternoon had 106 people housed. The city counts someone as housed if they're off the streets for 14 days.
We had to set a metric, and so we raised the bar to make it 14 days. But it's not about 14 days. It's about being on a path to permanent housing.
Cole Chandler manages Denver's initiative to get 1,000 people housed by the end of the year. He says someone who's housed for 14 days, then returns to the streets, only to be sheltered again, won't be counted twice. But when I asked him if the city will take folks off the count if they return to the streets...
So, I mean, yeah, I don't really know if I want to get into that. Like, the reality is that the 14 days is totally not what we're focused on.
I think it's really great to have something ambitious.
Homeless advocates like Jamie Reif with the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative have applauded Denver's effort to offer people solutions other than congregate shelters when they shut down encampments. But they caution, calling a hotel room or sanctioned campsite housing isn't quite accurate.
Really what we're measuring is a number of people that are no longer staying outdoors. At the end of the day, what we want to be measuring is how many people are ultimately getting into permanent housing.
Chandler says that's always been the city's goal, but they have to deal with the current state of the housing market.
Right now, the reality is that we can't just automatically create the thousands of permanently affordable housing units that we need. And so we've created some on-ramps to help get people towards housing.
So Chandler says it's hard to connect people in need with services from a street corner. The structure and the safety of these non-congregate shelter situations help people focus to get the resources they need to try to find the path to a forever home, Kyle.
I feel like one of the things that we're doing right now, Steve, is because the city is trying a new approach, we're sorting out terminology, right? Because we got to be able to tell, is the Johnston administration telling the truth about what happens? And the first thing that needs to occur is that everybody agrees what the words mean.
Right. And in this case, there are advocates who say the word should mean permanent housing. Now, the Johnston administration will be the first to tell you that there isn't enough of that out there to get 1,000 people into these permanent situations. And so they're trying to get them somewhere safe where they can be, where they can connect to things and then kind of move toward that goal. But really and truthfully, the way to end homelessness is to get people inside permanent homes.
All right, Steve Steger, very serious report. On a lighter note, how did we wear the same jacket to work? All right.
I don't know.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Migrants from the southern border have been arriving in Denver by the hundreds this week. 300 people just yesterday headed to the city's intake center, where they're connected to organizations willing to provide temporary shelter. The city keeps that intake center open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but obviously sometimes people arrive after hours. We got to look at what exactly happens in those scenarios. So the city's Department of Human Services told us the majority of new arrivals do show up when the intake center is open, but there's no real guidance for people who show up overnight. The city suggests they just try to find space at a traditional shelter. This morning, we talked to a group of 5 people who got into Denver at about 11 o'clock last night. They ended up choosing to sleep on the street for the night while they waited for the intake center to open this morning. City-run facilities are not currently being used to shelter migrants. It's other partner shelters that are currently sheltering nearly 1,900 people. That is a peak in Denver's sheltering efforts so far. Tomorrow, the mayor is going to provide an update on a situation that's becoming more complicated by the day, and obviously huge overlap with that sheltering effort and the homeless sheltering effort. Should note, when it comes to the southern border situation, Denver dropped its state of emergency, opening up new avenues of operation last month because new arrival numbers had fallen off so far. It is a pretty predictable pattern by this point. A far-right social media account targets a school district in Colorado, saying that it's out to protect the kids there. And then come the threats, putting the children and the school staff at actual risk. Last week, Libs of TikTok, social media platform with millions of followers and a history of targeting LGBTQ people, went after Cherry Creek schools, claiming they were providing pornographic books to elementary school kids. The claim was picked up by the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network, a conservative parents' rights group promoted by former Republican Senate candidate and talk radio host Deborah Flora. It was then amplified by former Republican gubernatorial candidate Heidi Ganahl. Since then, the district has been bombarded with hundreds of emails and calls. And on Friday, the district received an anonymous threat against 3 elementary schools and 2 administrative buildings. Bomb threats. The district says the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Department determined the threats were not credible. Cherry Creek School says despite all of the uproar, no one has filed a request to ban any of the books. They said even if they got that request, the district tells us none of the titles being discussed are available in any elementary school library. If you had C-SPAN on late night last night, it was Late Night with Lauren Boettcher, which is not what you're thinking if you saw what she was up to in that theater recently. This was theater of a different sort, as we saw the GOP congresswoman and a small group of far-right Republicans continue to push the House toward a government shutdown. In a largely empty House chamber, they offered one spending amendment after another, often focused on what they call the woke agenda, usually filled with anti-gay rhetoric and culture war buzzwords.
I rise today to offer my amendment that prevents USDA from using funds for woke extreme leftist courses, books, and study guides. As part of this administration's woke LGBTQI+, whatever other letter you'd like to add for the flavor of the day, Pride Month agenda.
Boettcher's been doubling down on the culture war stuff after she got caught lying about the vaping and the groping and the disruptive behavior that got her and her date thrown out of a theater in Denver earlier this month. Today, it cost her an endorsement from a prominent Republican in her district. Mesa County Commissioner Cody Davis says he can no longer support Boettcher, called her recent behavior, quote, simply indefensible. There's a first-of-its-kind challenge to Colorado's new law that allows elected officials to block their constituents on social media. This is a lawsuit against Denver School Board Vice President Ayante Anderson, who blocks his critics from posting on his social media accounts. Anderson's now being sued by a DPS parent who's blocked from posting on his Facebook page after she asked for a copy of the investigation into Anderson's inappropriate advances on teenage girls. Anderson said today that he complied with the law and that Denver Public Schools will fund his legal defense. Our conversations about gentrification so often focus on the Denver metro area, but we know it's happening in a number of neighborhoods across Colorado. In Fort Collins, a nonprofit is helping to organize Latino families to give a greater voice in what their community will look like in the future. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports the work of the Family Center, known in Fort Collins as La Familia. The North College corridor is dotted with mobile home parks that have been targets for development, and that often means displacement for the families who live there and some of the most affordable housing in Fort Collins. La Familia's Mi Voz program, My Voice, provides a way for families to lead the conversation about what's going to happen to their neighborhood, where they will be able to live, where they will be able to buy food, where they can grow food, even support for communities they're trying to organize to buy the mobile home parks where they live. This Mi Voz program is on top of all of the other work that the Family Center does to help underserved families in Fort Collins, providing childcare, providing interpretation services, offering the essentials that families shouldn't live without, like hygiene products or a car seat for a kid. Bottom line, if underserved families in Fort Collins need something, the Family Center is there for them. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get the link to donate. Same as always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. As gentrification threatens neighbors in Fort Collins, La Familia is meeting their needs and elevating their voices in this conversation.
We have been commemorating this particular anniversary for over 25 years here at this park.
Year after year, a special place in Colorado is key to keeping the memory of thousands of Holocaust victims alive. And farmers along the Colorado River say they are willing to cut back on water use, but they don't want the feds making the decisions. When it comes to conserving Colorado River water, farmers and ranchers are often the first to feel the pinch. New research suggests the farmers are willing to make cuts, but they'd prefer it's on their own terms. Researchers at the University of Wyoming surveyed hundreds of farmers and ranchers who rely on the Colorado, most from upper basin states like Colorado. 70% said that they are already conserving water. 80% said they're worried about additional restrictions coming down from state and federal regulators. The research found that the farmers clearly supported local management strategies.
Overwhelmingly, the thing that came through both from the survey and a number of interviews and the focus group we did is really a strong interest in developing local solutions and local strategies. I think there's a good deal of skepticism about the federal involvement and what that might mean, and how these federal efforts might grow into unexpected consequences.
Survey respondents have said they're not against the idea of being paid for conservation by the feds, but they indicated that at this point they think that compensation is too low. Danielle, we've watched this now for years. They've tried to get the agreement at the local level. The states can't agree amongst themselves, and the feds try to impose a solution, and the folks who are all the way down at the bottom actually taking the water out of the river when the water is there, They want the most local solution possible, but the folks up the food chain from them can't agree.
It all sounds messy to me.
Yeah.
That's for sure. You know what? We are diving into the fall season head first. It's beautiful. Bright blue skies out there. The leaves looking fantastic. I anticipate this weekend being stunning. Diane and Rod up there around the Breckenridge area this afternoon. So much color, the yellows, the oranges. It's looking good. If you're hanging here in the metro area, probably haven't seen too many of the leaves turning just yet. We've been treated to more of like a summer weather pattern here around the metro area. 88 officially out at DIA, close to 90 in Greeley, 90s in Lamar with 70s and 80s up in the mountains. Not a lot to talk about tonight on the radar. Overnight lows dropping off into the 50s for the metro area, a little cooler around Greeley down to 45, but high pressure is going to be around. Stormy skies staying well to our north. So that means tomorrow, once again, another warm up, and the winds will be kicking up a bit. We'll be watching high fire danger, especially out to the western slope. Highs returning to the upper 80s and the 90s around Burlington, Eads, Lamar, Springfield, looking at you with 70s and 80s. 80s, low 80s up in the high country. We'll be looking at the 80s continuing here in the metro area through the weekend. The winds will kick up just a bit. We'll be watching for high fire danger here in town on Saturday. And then finally, it looks like our numbers will cool off back to the 70s. We go next week with isolated storms next Tuesday.
We today are still facing anti-Semitism and racism and violent extremism that is targeted at the Jewish community.
For years, Denver's Jewish community has gathered at a park to commemorate thousands of Ukrainian Jews killed during the Holocaust. This year, they turned their attention to new threats. Denver has long had a connection to Bobby Yar. 82 years ago, the Bobby Yar massacre began. Nazis killed more than 30,000 Jews in 2 days near Kyiv, Ukraine. There will be 100,000 Jews killed there during World War II. Today, Denver's Jewish community kept their memory alive through song.
We are here today to commemorate the 82nd anniversary of the Bobby Yar massacre, which was a massacre of over 30,000 Jews just outside of Kiev in Ukraine by the Nazis in World War II. And every year we commemorate and honor their lives by hosting this remembrance ceremony. My name is Melanie Perlman, and I'm president and CEO of the Meisel Museum. We have been commemorating this particular anniversary for over 25 years here at this park, and it's been really extraordinary. We have unbelievable partners within the Jewish community that come together on this day, and the Russian Jewish community comes out to also honor and pay their respects. This event is so important because it was one of the largest massacres of Jews in World War II. And every time that we think about how many lives that were lost then and the impact that it certainly has today is incredible. We today are still facing anti-Semitism and racism and violent extremism that is targeted at the Jewish community. To not only commemorate the lives that were lost and honor their memory, we too have to this day, continue to have that at the forefront of our mind so that it never happens again.
We'll return with your feedback and a special guest next. The Family Center, La Familia in Fort Collins, supports underserved neighbors. They're often Latino families in a variety of ways, from basic needs like hygiene items to car seats for kids to childcare and interpretation services. And then they get involved in the big lifts, like fighting gentrification through their Mi Voz program, helping neighbors in mobile home parks on the North College Corridor fight to stay in their homes and in their community. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to join me in donating to this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign to support the Family Center, La Familia's work. Gentrification is not just a Denver metro area issue, and they have the track record and the structure up in Fort Collins to elevate the voices that matter most. Those are the families living in it. Rob has feedback for the two of us.
Ooh, that collar's mixed up. They're
Bros, too close. Call or text each other. Blue says twins tonight.
Blue.
I like it. Blue. No wonder Blue likes it. We will see you next time.